All right, let's just get right into it. We're about to take that whole Mother Earth image you have in your head and completely dismantle it. Because we need to talk about the ruthless political operator she actually was in the original myths. So forget the gentle, nurturing spirit. The source material shows us someone far more calculating, the true mastermind behind every single regime change in Olympian history.
No, really, go ahead and picture it. I bet it's something serene, right? A benevolent figure who just wants peace and for everyone to recycle. And yeah, it's a comforting image, but here's the thing. It's basically a modern invention. The ancient sources, they tell a very, very different story.
Yeah, the ancient texts, especially Hesiod's Theogony, they paint a portrait of a calculating and, honestly, often violent force. She isn't some passive victim or a backdrop for the action. She is the chief antagonist of whatever sky god is in power, a master strategist working from the shadows to install and uninstall rulers whenever she wants.
And her career as a regime toppler, well, it kicks off right at the very beginning with the first government of the cosmos. And this isn't just some family drama. This is the story of her first fully orchestrated coup, aimed directly at her own husband and son, Uranus.
You have to understand, Uranus's tyranny wasn't driven by some grand evil ideology. Nope, it was about aesthetics. He was literally disgusted by his powerful, kind of monstrous children, so he just shoved them back inside of her. He turned Gaia's own body into a prison. And the text is just brutal about it. It says, Gaia groaned within, suffering this immense, constant physical pain.
So this wasn't a crime of passion, not at all. This was a calculated, four-step military operation. Gaia doesn't just cry out for help. She becomes a spy master and a general. She forges the weapon herself, she recruits her agent, she devises the entire operational plan, and then she sets the trap. She is the sole architect of this treason. And get this, in the immediate aftermath of the coup, her efficiency is just, wow, it's incredible. As Uranus is bleeding out, she doesn't see a mess, she sees raw materials. From the blood that hits the earth, she immediately manufactures a police force, the Furies, who are literal spirits of vengeance, and an army in waiting, the Giants. She turns the trauma of a revolution into a massive strategic advantage.
So, with Uranus gone, Gaia has successfully installed a new administration. But you know how these stories go. The revolutionary often becomes the next tyrant. And Gaia, the kingmaker, has to get back to work. And wouldn't you know it, Cronus betrays the very principle that got him into power. He hears this prophecy, which, by the way, almost certainly came from Gaia herself, that his own son is going to overthrow him. So what's his brilliant idea? He starts swallowing his children whole, right as they're born. It's the exact same crime as his father's, just a different kind of prison. And Gaia sees this oppressive pattern just repeating itself. Okay, look at this. This is not just a grandmother saving her favorite grandkid. No. This is a long-term strategic operation. She likely creates the crisis herself by feeding Cronus the prophecy. Then she runs a counterintelligence op to smuggle the future king, Zeus, to safety. And she doesn't just babysit him, she raises him to be the weapon she needs. And then, when the war against Cronus stalls for 10 long years, who has the key piece of intel to break the stalemate? Gaia, of course. Now this is where Gaia shows her connection to something you'd never expect from Mother Earth, technology. See, the Cyclopes weren't just big brutes, they were master blacksmiths, brilliant engineers. By telling Zeus to free them, Gaia basically unlocked the world's most advanced armory. They forged the Thunderbolt, a legit weapon of mass destruction that gave the Olympians overwhelming firepower. She didn't just pick a winner, she armed him to the teeth. So, coup number 2 is a success. Zeus is on the throne. You'd think, okay, this must be the happy ending, right? But this is where the story takes a crucial, and I mean crucial, turn. Because when her own hand-picked champion becomes a tyrant in her eyes, Gaia decides it's time for one more regime change. Zeus wins the war, and what is the very first thing he does? He rounds up all the defeated Titans, who are his uncles and aunts, Gaia's own children, and he throws them into the eternal prison of Tartarus. For Gaia, this is the ultimate betrayal. It is the exact same pattern of injustice she fought against twice before. Her loyalty isn't to a person, not even her favorite grandson. It's to her children and to her own power. So, what do? How does a primordial goddess uninstall a king who's gone rogue? Well, she doesn't file a complaint. She decides the entire Olympian system she helped build is now a failed state, and it's time to initiate a hard reset. So she turns to her final, most terrifying weapon. She births her nuclear option. I mean, the descriptions of Typhon in the ancient texts are pure nightmare fuel. He's born from Gaia and Tartarus, the earth and the pit itself, and he is a living apocalypse, designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to tear down the heavens and destroy the gods. And here's the part that everybody forgets, but it is absolutely mind-blowing. In their first battle, Typhon wins. It's not even close. He utterly defeats Zeus. He physically tears out the king's sinews, the tendons that let him move, and leaves the mighty god of thunder crippled, a boneless, powerless sack on a cave floor. Gaia's creation nearly ended the entire Olympian age right then and there. Zeus only recovers because Hermes, the god of thieves, manages to pull off a heist and steal the sinews back. Zeus barely wins the second round, and even then, he can't kill Typhon. He just buries the monster under a mountain. And, according to the myths, the volcano Mount Etna erupts because Typhon is still down there, alive and raging, a permanent reminder of just how fragile Zeus's victory really was. Okay, so we've seen the pattern. Gaia installs a ruler, that ruler becomes a tyrant, and Gaia takes them out. But her loyalties seem to shift so violently, right? To really understand why, we have to pull the camera back from the story itself and start looking at the storytellers. It's a fair question. I mean, she helps Zeus rise to power and then immediately tries to have him murdered by a 100-headed snake monster. How do we make sense of that? Well, the answer is in how the story itself was put together and in the real-world history that shaped it. So the first reason is literary. Think of it like this. The Theogony isn't a novel that was written from start to finish. It's more like a mixtape. It's a stitchwork of older, independent songs that the poet Hesiod wove together. A song about Cronus, a totally separate song about the Titan War, another one about Typhon. Inside each individual song, Gaia's actions make perfect sense. The contradictions only pop up when you merge all those separate files into one long playlist. But see, that literary explanation, it makes sense, but it doesn't answer the deeper question. These stories were edited, right? And the final version that we have today clearly elevates Zeus and makes Gaia seem kinda erratic and chaotic. So why? Why was this incredibly powerful, primordial female force rewritten to be secondary to a male sky god? Well, the answer to that lies in a huge shift in human society that these myths actually record. With the rise of agriculture, land suddenly became private property that needed to be inherited. And for a man to pass on his farm, his wealth, he had to be absolutely certain his son was actually his son. This paternity anxiety led to social systems designed to control women. And the religion followed right along, rewriting powerful female gods and centralizing all the power in a big father god, perfectly mirroring the new patriarchal order on Earth. So, once you understand that historical context, you can finally see Gaia's true role in the whole cosmic hierarchy. She's not just a disgruntled mother or some chaotic force of nature. She is the foundation of the entire system. And this is probably the best way to think about it. We see Zeus as the CEO of Olympus, the big boss, but he's not. Gaia is the hardware, the physical planet, the server, the unchangeable platform everything is built on. Rulers like Uranus, Cronus, and Zeus, they're just software. They are the operating systems running the world for a while. And if that software gets corrupted, if it becomes tyrannical, the hardware can initiate a forced shutdown and a hard reboot. And that leaves us with one last kind of chilling thought. We've seen Gaia's consistent pattern, right? She is a serial regime toppler who destroys oppressive systems that harm her children and threaten her autonomy. So when you look at the modern world, at the way we treat the planet itself, you really have to wonder, are we provoking a response? The hardware might just be getting ready to reject the software one more time.